Hey, I'm Stan Gibson, and this is the Inspiration Podcast. Let's get to it. Hey, everybody, how you doing? Thank you for coming back to the Inspiration Podcast with Stan. Today, hey, I'm going to razzle and dazzle you with a fascinating story about my college days and everything that I learned about human-centric leadership. And it wasn't in a classroom, my friends. It was an incredible experience on the gridiron of being part of a team that went from worst to first in college football. It was a whole lot of fun. If you didn't check out, again, this is episode number 2. And I'm so excited. If you didn't get to listen to episode number 1, check it out. Check it out. You know, I talk a little bit about the fact that each one of these episodes is going to be no more than 25 to 30 minutes. I don't even know how long this one will go today. I don't know that it'll go that far. So I want you to stick with me because I like episodes that last about as long as it takes to get ready for work in the morning, have a commute, a workout, whatever it might be. And of course, I've got a lot of guests that are going to be coming your way. In fact, I've got an amazing guest that's going to be in the next episode that you're not going to want to miss. And I've got a lot of guests. I'll probably mix this thing up with some solo cast of me talking about leadership and a lot of the experiences, a lot of the neuroscience, a lot of the things that I've worked with clients in order to help them be the best version of themselves. And then we're going to talk a little bit about with guests, phenomenal guests that not only have reached great heights, but they had a lot of challenges. They had a lot of missteps on the way up. How did they get around that? What did they have to do in order to get past some of the problems and challenges that they had? So I tell you what, you're going to love this. Today's going to be a really, really cool episode, and I want to dive into it. So, hey, let's get this party started. I want to take you back a little bit, everybody. I want to take you back to, as a high school football player, I was pretty good. I got all confidence and all that stuff, both ways, offense, defense. And, I got some regional honors and some state honors. So, I thought it was pretty good. And so, but I played for a smaller school, wasn't getting many college offers. And so the most I had was to be what's called a preferred walk-on, which means, you get to do everything that the scholarship players do, but you're not getting your education for free. But this was at the time, a Division II school called Eastern Illinois University. And there's a cool story to this. So please stick with me. And so I went there as a preferred walk-on, and I'm looking around at all the athletes. They're from all over the country. Doggone it. They're really ripped. They're fast. They're good. They're grown men. It's like, wow, the talent's here. I know that this program has struggled, but I went there because the guy that hosted me during my recruiting, he was kind of like me. He was kind of tall, gangly when he went there as a freshman, and he had just been picked, I think, in the 3rd or 4th round by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he ended up, I think, spending about 5 or 6 years in the NFL. But I wanted to be that guy. I want to be that guy that, I was very skinny, didn't have quite the speed and all that good stuff, which is why I wasn't recruited heavily. But I wanted to be that guy. And Eastern Illinois seemed like the place to do it. And I'm hanging around a lot of really, really, really good athletes. And so, I'm on the practice team. I'm on the scout squad, really learning a lot. And we go through the season and, they lose their first game. Okay. Then they lose their second, then their third, their fourth. They lost every game until the last game of the year. They went 1-10. And I'm sitting around and I'm looking, I'm saying, my goodness, the talent's here. What is it? And I'll get into a little bit about that, but it was just mind-numbing. I was part of this team that I went there to hopefully become an NFL player and hopefully, play on Saturdays and eventually play on Sundays. And here I am, I'm part of a team that went 1-10, but they got phenomenal talent. How many companies out there are like that? They're failing, but they got phenomenal talent. So, you don't keep your job in college football if you go 1-10. And he lost his job. And they brought in a new coach. Now, I can still remember the day that we were introduced. And this new coach, his name is Darryl Mudra. And Darryl went by the name of Dr. Victory. I don't think he named himself that. People, the press named him Dr. Victory. He had just won everywhere he had went. And he actually was just coming from Florida State, which was his first his first time that he really didn't get a program turned around, but only because he was only given 2 years, and then they brought in Bobby Bowden afterwards. So, but he would have turned it around. Absolutely would have turned it around. And so we were introduced to Coach Mudra, and this was a really it was a weight room that was very small, cylinder block type weight room, smelly, just damp, Midwest, very cold. And he walks in, and he's just, kind of an unassuming guy. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie. Now, for my younger listeners, you probably won't know what I'm referencing here, but there was a detective show called Columbo back in the 90s, and it was played by Peter Falk. And Peter Falk was, this detective that when he came in the room, it's like he was the dumbest guy in the room. And then you found out, oh my goodness, he's the smartest guy in the room. But he would ask these questions and then ask questions, and he'd act like he forgot. And he kind of stuttered a little bit. Well, that was Coach Mudra. When he walked in, he looked like Columbo acted. And the first thing that came out of his mouth was, I really don't know a lot about football, gentlemen. Now, when you're addressing a team that just came off a 1-10 season, and you say, I really don't know a lot about football, you're kind of freaking out. But yet, he knew a lot about life. In fact, come to find out, he was a student of philosophy, of Greek philosophers, Aristotle, Socrates. And he knew a lot about life, but he didn't know a lot about football. And in fact, he said, the most success I personally had, was I coached my grandson's team to win the Pop Warner championship. And, he had to actually call plays. But outside of that, he had never done that. In fact, he coaches from the press box because he doesn't like to be on the field. He's not really a part of the X and O's during the game. So he would sit up in the press box where he could kind of observe and see better. See, this was lesson number 1. Know who you are and know who you're not. Have self-awareness to know what your strength is. And he knew how to assemble good teams. He knew how to run a culture. But he also knew how to recruit and surround himself with people that knew X and O's, people that could motivate differently. And I work with a lot of clients. This is really the crux of the first 2 to 3 months of when I work with clients. We are working on self-awareness. We are working on what is your magic trick? What is it that makes you so special? And who do you need to surround yourself with? So that was amazing. So we walk in, we meet this guy, and again, he doesn't give us the, a real motivational speech. We're kind of wondering, but he says, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, gentlemen. I'm going to introduce you to some of the best coaches you'll ever meet. And within 3 to 4 weeks, he started assembling his staff. Our offensive coordinator, who had played at Eastern Illinois just 3 years ago, and he was now going through the coaching ranks, and they brought him back, was Mike Shanahan. If you know anything about college football, Mike Shanahan has, 3, 4 Super Bowl rings. His son is the current head coach for the San Francisco 49ers. His son wasn't born at the time, by the way. Mike was 25 years old, and Mike was a phenom, and Mike was destined to be an NFL head coach. And Darryl Mudra knew that. Darryl Mudra knew how to pick talent. He brought another coach by the name of John Cheerlink. And John, I think he said that John would probably be the first NFL coach. He was not. Mike Shanahan was. But John Cheerlink, who, he unfortunately passed away a few years ago. John is known as probably the greatest defensive line coach in the NFL. He had years with the Indianapolis Colts, and he molded people that are in that are in the Hall of Fame. And yet he was 25, 26, 27 at the time. Joe Taylor, he brought in. I don't know how old Joe was, but let's just say Joe was probably in his late 20s. Joe just got inducted into the HSBC Coaches Hall of Fame. He's in the Hall of Fame as a coach. And he was an assistant back then. I mean, you can see that this assemblage of coaches that he brought in, they were young, but yet they were talented. And here's what's one of the cool things, everybody. Some of the coaches that he hired, he retained from the old coaching staff, from the 1-10 team, because he knew potential in people. See, it wasn't the coaches that were bad. It was the system that was bad. We ran what was called a veer offense, which was not really suited for college football. It wasn't suited for the talent that was on the field, but the coaches were still good. How many of you possibly have been let go of a firm through no fault of your own? The system was bad, whatever was bad, and you take the blame with you. No, these coaches were good coaches. They became part of this worst to first within 12 months experience. And just so you know how this story ends, I've got a long ways to go here of what Coach Mudra did. But this team went from 1-10, 1-10 my freshman year, and I redshirted. I sat out. I was a skinny kid. Even though I had pumped up to my height, I was 6'6", I had pumped up from about 200 pounds to 220. I needed to gain another 30 to 40 pounds to really play. They moved me from tight end to offensive center. In college football, you better be 275, 280. And so I took off my sophomore year to A, to get my grades up, and B, to get stronger. I had to get stronger. But I still got a front row seat at watching everything play out. And it was the best experience of my life. Again, what I was learning about people-centric, human-centric, people-centric leadership was this self-awareness. I was learning about assembling the right people to be in the swim lanes beside you so that you can be in your swim lane and hire and be around the best people possible. You've always heard people say, you're the product of the 5 people you hang around with most. I really started thinking even more about that, even recently, even, at this season and tenure of my life, I started thinking about who are the people that I am relying to validate, but yet push me to even a higher level. And that's what this team was doing. That's what Coach Mudra was doing. He assembled and put together some really good coaches. Now, here's some other interesting things. I can still remember him saying, but gentlemen, while I'm going to surround you with really good coaches, you're the coaches, you, the player, you, the individual. You see, you're out there on the field. You know if you're getting your butt beat or if you're beating the guy across from you. We don't know that. Unless we know what's going on in the field, we can't make adjustments. How many companies would absolutely go from worst to first, or at least excel, if they spent more time with the people in the field, if they knew what was working and what wasn't working, if they were able to adjust quarterly, sometimes monthly, just based on product development, what was happening, what wasn't, where are the bottlenecks? So that's a big part of people-centric leadership, is this flattening of the organization. It's this empowering people that are actually delivering the product and working on it day in, day out to come up with suggestions. And I found that so unique. I just thought that was the coolest thing, to actually give people that ability to feel like they weren't going to get yanked out of the game if they were honest and forthright in what they were seeing. And then the next thing I think really had to do around some motivation. The team actually had low morale. I mean, you don't go through a 1-10 season and not have low morale. And one of the things I found interesting was, he kind of asked us, I think he asked some of the leaders of the team, what can we do to kind of lift up the morale of the team? And our uniforms, when we were 1-10, I mean, they made Penn State's look sexy. If you know anything about Penn State, they have white pants, black shirt, white helmet. We were the same way. We had black shoes, white socks, white pants, a blue, very thick jersey with a number on it. And I think it might have said EIU, short for Eastern Illinois University, on the front, and a blue helmet. And I think it might have had a decal. I don't know. But anyway, it was boring. And this was about the time, this was an era where white shoes were being introduced. And the guys got up the courage to say, could we just get some new threads? Could we get some new uniforms? And, it was like a scene out of the movie, The Longest Yard, if you've ever seen that, where, they steal the prison guards' jerseys in the football game they're going to play against them. It was kind of like that, where you open up the box and all of a sudden you got these super cool uniforms. You've got silver pants with a blue and white stripe down the side of them. You've got these mesh jerseys. And for the guys that had 6-pack abs, they came down and just halfway across their chest so that, they could model, these ripped abs. And the helmets, instead of blue, now they were silver. And they had a panther across the side. I mean, it kind of looked like the Detroit Lions. Lo and behold, we had white shoes. I mean, everybody was jumping higher, running faster. I know they were. I mean, it was the vibe. It was the morale. And sometimes that's all it takes is just changing the scenery, changing things to incorporate morale. Now, I will also tell you, for example, I had a prospective client call me last week and they said, we give them all the pizza, we give them all the things, but we're still not seeing the results. Well, that's where they need to be developed. I mean, maybe that's not their love language is pizza. And, it sticks for about, until you're hungry again. But what about being developed? What about becoming better? What about helping them become the best in their swim lane? So those were some of the elements that went around this people-centric leadership that caused this team to go from worst to first, this team to go from 1-10 to national champions. And by the way, this team was just honored about 5 months ago after, I got to think, maybe it's 40 years, but this team was just honored into the Eastern Illinois University Hall of Fame. And I want to tell you something very cool about when you develop a legacy like this was back in the late 70s, everybody. But I want to tell you about when this legacy started. I want to tell you who came and played at Eastern Illinois after that. And I'm going to leave out a lot of names, trust me. But I'll tell you the ones that I think you probably know. Tony Romo. Tony Romo was a quarterback at Eastern Illinois. Sean Payton, head coach for the Denver Broncos, was a quarterback there. Childress, Ray Childress, he was head coach for the Minnesota Vikings, was a player there. One of the great linemen, Jurgis, I'm thinking of his name, but for the Green Bay Packers, he played there. Ryan Pace, whose general manager was for the Chicago Bears, played there. I can even go back to the players that I played with that went on to have either NFL or back then it was called the USFL careers. And that, when I say careers, I mean careers. They were instrumental in playing at the next level. And so this system of self-awareness, of surrounding yourself with the best, of having the players on the field be the coaches, of improving morale. I was seeing in a nutshell what a people-centric culture looked like and how you change a culture. And I want to tell you one final thing about this that I think is interesting. The players that were on the field for this national championship. Now, he did bring in, I think he recruited 25 junior college players, but only about 4 or 5 of them were really, starters. That meant that you had a lot of guys still playing that were on that 1-10 team. And it wasn't, again, that they were bad players, but they just weren't in the right position. We had a lot of players that, like our quarterback, moved to wide receiver, better wide receiver than a quarterback. We had a linebacker who probably the position was just a little bit too much complicated and moved to defensive end, where all he had to do was rush the passer, became All-American. All-American, went on to play in the USFL. I mean, just a phenomenal athlete. In the right position, he was able to excel. And that's what we as leaders want to do. We want to take the people that we have, the employees, the resources we have, and make sure that they're in a position to succeed. That's what we want to do. So as I mentioned, I set out that sophomore year, didn't get a ring. Doesn't bother me. I have no problem with that because what I learned has stuck with me for the entirety of my leadership career. I've learned just being a part of this was phenomenal. And the great thing is, I went back and I played in the spring after they won the championships. I was back, I was working and I just realized that, again, now I was around 235, 240, and I still was 30 pounds too light. I was still probably a half a day too slow. I wasn't going to be playing with any kind of meaningfulness on Saturdays and probably wasn't going to be playing on Sundays. And so that dream came to an end. But the amazing thing is, I got a phone call, and I'm a very faithful man. I believe God placed this in my life. But I got a phone call, and this was right before my junior year of college. And it was a high school about 25 minutes away that said, we're looking for an assistant head coach. And I want you to think about this. This is the week before the first game. So when you're looking for an assistant head coach the week before the first game, this program's bad. This program is pretty bad. Well, I jump at the chance. And so I go there. And they say, Stan, you are now the defensive coordinator, and you have a week to install our defense. And by the way, we're playing one of the top 10 teams in the state next Friday. Well, I'm coming off of a lot of Darryl Mudra, Dr. Victoryisms. I'm coming off of a people-centric, and I'm a highly animated guy anyway. And so to start to change the culture here, I've got some work to do. And I'd like to tell you that it happened right away, but I want to tell you something. That first week went by pretty quick, and we installed what's called the 52 defense. To say it didn't work is an understatement. We lost 89-6. Yeah, 89-6. You didn't, your earphones are plugged in correctly. 89-6. And I don't know if I was more surprised that they scored 89 and the fact that we actually scored 6. I mean, we had no talent and we had no systems and we had nothing. And we went on to have a similar season of winning one game. But the best thing about juniors are they become seniors. And we had a really good group of juniors that were buying into a lot of the excitement, a lot of the motivation, a lot of the enthusiasm, a lot of the vision that, the head coach that I was able to bring to the table. I mean, I really jacked these guys up. And we were fortunate. We brought in a pretty good quarterback. He wasn't great, but a pretty good quarterback transferred into this small school. It's a small farming town. It wasn't like a big, this isn't like a Chicago school. I mean, this is a small farming community that maybe had 300-400 kids in the school. And so, again, we did some of the same things, got the players in the right position, brought in a few more coaches that I knew from Eastern Illinois that were really good at what they did. I mean, teaching them special teams and all the fundamentals and all the techniques. And yeah, we got new uniforms too. And we got white shoes. And now these guys were starting to buy in. And in their off season, when I wasn't even around, these are farm kids and they were out lifting and they were getting better each and every day. And when we came back and started the very first day of practice for their senior year, it was like a different team, physically and mentally, because now we were changing the culture and we were getting players in the right position and we were entrusting them to be coaches on the field. And lo and behold, the schedule didn't change. And we had that top 10 team. They were still in the top 10, the very first game. When you get beat 89-6 a year ago from that team, you're not going in with very good vibes. And while I would love to tell you that we beat them, we did not. We did not beat them. We lost 6-0 on a tipped pass right before half. It was a tip pass. It was just a fluke thing. We lost 6-0. But these guys were evolving. They were evolving not just as football players, they were evolving as men. They were evolving from their leadership. They were evolving in every way possible with the mindset that they could win. And it was a fantastic season. We probably ended up, 500. We played some really good teams. We won more than this team had ever won in the past, I think, decade and a half. Some of these players, ones particularly went on to play some college football. They just were different people. And, I can even remember one game, one of the final games. I remember, we were getting beat. And one of the players comes over to me and says, "Coach, you're calling the wrong place. If we stunt to the other direction, I can get it. We can get it. If we just modify and stunt to the other direction." I said, "Well, let's do it. Let's do it." And so we called that. And yeah, he was right. He was right. I would have known that. I was 50 feet from the action. He was right there. And he was able to go ahead and we were able to win that game. And it was a phenomenal feeling. And I will tell you something. I was carried off the field. It's one of the biggest joys. I wish that as an executive, as a leader, I wish we could carry some of our leaders off the field some days when they've done well and when they've listened. There would be nothing better than to actually carry leaders out of the office building and let them know that, you know what, thank you. Thank you for growing with us, helping me grow and develop, but thank you. And so, that is a lot about this worst to first. It's a phenomenal story. And Coach Mudra passed away about 2 or 3 years ago. And I just, I just learned so much about a guy that said, "I know very little about football, but he knew about life. He knew about philosophy. And he had his problems. He had his warts." I mean, I go back to the reunions and, they tell me stories that I say, "Oh my goodness, I didn't realize that was going on behind the scenes." And yeah, that was a little ugly. But you know what? All leaders do. We've all got our problems, our challenges. But these were some of the things that I learned about turning around a culture. So we're going to finish this one up today, everybody. I always want you to take away things from these episodes. And I want you to think a little bit about your self-awareness. I want you to think a little bit about, again, do you truly know who you are and who you're not? Do you truly know what your magic trick is and what your swim lane is without failure? It's called identity transformation. And I take my clients through identity transformation. I take them through the ability to know who they are at their best. Do you know who you are at your best? I want you to think a little bit about that. And if you want to know a little bit more about me, hey, come visit me on my website, stangibsonspeaks.com, stangibsonspeaks.com, or go to any of my social media outlets and check me out. But I will tell you what, this is what we do. This is how we inspire. And I'll tell you what, my next episode, I'm bringing in a leader that blows me away, everybody. This guy is just absolutely phenomenal. And I just can't wait to introduce you to him. I can't wait to introduce you to him. So anyway, I look forward to seeing you. Thank you for coming and joining me with episode 2. Go back and check out episode 1. And I'll tell you what, may you all live a rich and intentional life. I'm out of here. Take care. Have a great day. Well, that's it for today, my friends. I hope this conversation sparked something meaningful for you. If it did, share it with someone who could use a little inspiration too. You can find more tools, stories, and coaching to support your journey at stangibsonspeaks.com.